Hello, welcome to Rough Cut Film Review, or as I could call it, last year's film review. Haha, excellent banter. But seriously though, this is a review of Silverlinings Playbook, which was big in the Oscars and Jennifer Lawrence, etc., etc. I didn't really fancy this because I thought a Hollywood not a blockbuster, but a Hollywood film on mental health issues, probably not for me, particularly starring Bradley Cooper. The good news is that actually it's really good. It's brought to us by David Russell, who's had a pretty up and down career in his previous films. So if we look at things like Three Kings, I Heart Huckabees and The Fighter, a bit of a mixed bag there. Even in the films, it's very up and down, in the films themselves. So Bradley Cooper's character in Silverlinings Playbook, he's freshly released from a mental hospital, and immediately he's picked up by his dear old mum, who's played by Jackie Weaver. He's then driven home back to the family house where his father Robert De Niro is waiting. We realise quite quickly that he used to be an educator, but he's not anymore, having lost his job. Something happened, and obviously he was sectioned, and as the film goes, we find out quite what that was and the effect. So the shock here really is that not only is De Niro in this as a proper character, throughout the entirety of the film, he's not making one of his silly comic cameos, but he's actually really, really good in this. I mean, I remember De Niro back when he was a young man, and his commitment to his roles was absolutely remarkable. So, for example, as a taxi driver, he went and worked as a taxi driver in New York for months. I mean, he really threw himself in. As far back now as I can remember, and let's be honest, it's been a very long time, he's been, doing these ridiculous films like Meet the Fockers and very, very depressing stuff. But in here, as the gambling obsessed father, he is really, really good. He's absolutely fantastic, and it's been such a long time since I've seen him actually acting properly. So quickly, at the beginning of the film, one by one we sort of meet the protagonists' nearest and dearest, his best friends, etc., etc. One by one, we realise there's something not quite right about all of them. We also get to meet Jennifer Lawrence's troubled widow very quickly. As Cooper goes through meeting people, we realise that with possibly the exception of Lawrence's character, he is very much stigmatised for having mental health issues and having been sectioned. However, we realise that each and every one of his nearest and dearest have their own demons they're battling with, they have their own problems, they have their own tics, and fundamentally, they all raise that sort of the red flag that there's something not quite right there. And that is largely the point of the film. So as the plot gets underway, the basic premise we have is Cooper, and this sounds a bit silly, but actually it works quite nicely. Cooper has to win back his estranged wife, who he's very much in love with. The only way he can do that is by teaming up with Jennifer Lawrence's character in a dance competition and, not winning the dance competition, but getting a respectable score and just demonstrating that he can apply himself and show commitment, and boy can he. So in terms of influences, well, it reminded me of Jeff Who Lives at Home. In terms of the sort of dysfunctional family stuff, it reminded me a little bit of Little Miss Sunshine, but without that kookiness that I know other people sort of found really clawing. It's quite, in terms of the actual structure of the film and its tone, it's actually quite similar to a sort of lo-fi slacker film, but it's denuded of any kind of rude jokes there. Having said that, there's lots of really good dark situational humour here, and it all comes from the interplay between Cooper, Lawrence and De Niro. There's no real zingers, but it's just really witty, situational. The dialogue is really good and it's played really well. So while you might not laugh out loud, there's lots of likeable stuff in there. There really is, and it's really good. The ending is quite schmaltzy, but I had no problem with that. I liked it. I'd invested in the characters. I liked the characters, and I wanted, to be honest, I wanted to see nice stuff happen to them. As silly as that sounds, I just wanted things to be all right. And, doing that is not an easy thing to do. It means that I like the characters and I invested in them. So, nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's the criticism people always have about Spielberg, that his films are so schmaltzy. For example, War Horse. Well, actually, to be honest, it's very difficult to get that trick, to pull that trick. It's not as easy. If it was as easy as we think it is, everyone would do it. I mean, Bradley Cooper really surprises me here. I mean, he's made a name for himself as sort of, to me, he's sort of a third-rate, sort of action-y, quibbing, he's the handsome bloke you get in. Things like the A-Team and those terrible hangover films that, for the life of me, I don't understand why they're so popular. They're so generic. Oh, good Lord. But anyway, he's excellent here. He really is. And he's very, very likeable. Also worth mention, I mean, Jennifer Lawrence is fantastic. She's as good as everyone says she is. And, she really is fantastic in everything I've seen her in. I mean, she's just brilliant. A big future ahead of her. Chris Tucker pops up in a supporting role here, but he's really good, and it's worth a mention there because he's someone who is quite clearly not always really good, and he is very understated and likeable in it. I really recommend this film. It's if you just like your blockbusters, clearly a dialogue heavy film where not a great deal happens isn't going to be your cup of tea, but I would broadly recommend it. I really like this film. I wouldn't say I love it, but I really, really like this film. So that is still a very big recommendation.